morning. It is Wednesday, September the 1st. I'm Shane Seeley and this is the CBC Morning Report. We start our news this morning with a local teachers union joining the national call for students to be vaccinated against COVID-19 as soon as possible. This is the stance of the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union following yesterday's meeting and subsequent announcement about plans for the new school term to commence online on September 20th. It also comes on the heels of a report that 114 students are among those in isolation after testing positive for COVID-19. Now let's bring in Marianne Redmond, the president of the BSTU, joining us live here on the Morning Report. Good morning, Mary. Good to have you on.
Good morning, Shane. Good morning, listeners, viewers.
Not quite hearing you, but hopefully we'll rectify that problem in a matter of seconds. Let's first talk about the press conference. The minister, she announced, Minister Santia Bradshaw, Minister of Education, announcing schools starting on September 20th online. She also mentioned that since the vaccination program, the national vaccination program, opened to vaccinating those children 12 years to 18 years of age, over 2,000 students of 21,000 students have been vaccinated. This is somewhat of a slower than expected uptake. Why is the BSTU supporting those calls for children in Barbados to be vaccinated?
Well, Shane, are you hearing me?
Hearing you loud and clear.
Yes. Okay, good. The fact of the matter is that while the vaccines are not mandated, the uptake of vaccines remain a choice for people. The vaccines are another layer of protection against COVID, and it is one of the most effective layers of protection. Now, we know that we have the Delta variant here in Barbados. We know from global experience how infectious this variant is, and by extension, how potentially deadly it is. We know also that this variant, unlike some of the others that we have been exposed to here, affects children in a far more serious manner than the other variants. Children seem to be far more vulnerable. And as you have correctly stated, up to yesterday, as far as our statistics indicate, there are 114 children in isolation. This sends a serious message to our small, densely populated society that we have to take all of the steps necessary, all of the steps that we know can work to protect this population. If children are vaccinated, so it means that the layers of protection within the school environment would be more effective, and everyone using the school plant would then be protected, better protected against the virus. That way, we can attempt to resume a more normal approach to education, which is our face-to-face type of instruction. Until we can get the levels of potential safety where they should be in the schools, it is going to keep us in a purely online environment. We know the deficiencies of online instruction. Yes. And so vaccination can only work to the benefit of all involved.
Well, for teachers, what is the uptake like as far as the vaccines are concerned? Because parents may say if their children need to be vaccinated, teachers should be vaccinated too.
Well, anecdotally, to be honest, because I don't have the latest statistics, but the uptake by teachers has been quite good. Quite good.
Let's look at the September 20th start of online instruction. Is it the right call in light of the low vaccination rate? Are you satisfied with that?
The actual date of commencement of the school year is September the 20th?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't. Yes, in that we are seeking to commence the school year within an online environment, yes. And it gives us time too to be able to gauge this trend, this upsurge, and see exactly where we are headed, the steps we need to take, and the best way in which to protect our children in the society, within the education and environment, and as they interact with the wider society.
What would be your message to parents who are still undecided? I spoke to a parent yesterday. She's not convinced that her or her children need to take the vaccine. If this standoff continues, where does it leave you as the BSTU and teachers and the education system as a whole?
Well, first of all, my advice to parents would be to do their research of credible sources. The global experience is there. We are seeing what is happening in the USA in terms of the Delta variant. We are seeing across the states that have the least uptake in vaccinations. Those are the states with the highest numbers of infection, the highest numbers of hospitalizations. The hospitals are full. The children's ICUs in places like Texas and Florida are full. And so we have that to use an example of what can happen to us and to our children. Do your research, speak to your doctors, get the assurance that you need, get the information that you need, and arm yourself with the vaccine. Because if you do your research and you look globally at the trends, really and truthfully, you would see that the best way to protect our youth right now is to vaccinate them. In terms of a low uptake of vaccinations and how it would affect the STU and its members as teaching professionals, we would really hope that that low uptake is turned around, so to speak, and that persons would be convinced that this is the way to go. It is the only way or the most effective way to provide a safe teaching, learning environment to which our students can return to be exposed to the most effective teaching and learning as we know how within our society and given the resources that we have available to us generally.
And quickly before you go, are we ready for that start of the new school term online? Is everything in place? Are you satisfied with those preparations?
Well, coming out of our meeting yesterday with the Minister of Education and the Chief Education Officer and other ministry officials, things seem to be in train. The plans are there, set up and being operationalized to distribute again the devices to students who may have returned them at the end of the school year, and to upgrade upgrade assistance to students who may be deprived in the sense that they may not have Wi-Fi access or electricity and things of that nature. So the problems that we might have experienced during the last school year are being addressed aggressively as we move towards the September 20th start. This being the information that has been passed on to us yesterday.
Mary, thank you so much. All bright-eyed and bushy-tailed joining us here live on the Morning Report. It's always good seeing you. You stay safe. Until next time.
Thank you, Shane. You be safe.
Thank you so much. Now, the conversation about vaccinating children under the age of 12 now for COVID-19 will be a controversial one. But a leading pediatrician believes it's a conversation that needs to happen urgently in light of the surge of COVID-19 cases in all segments of the population here in Barbados. The Director of Medical Services at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Dr. Clyde Cave, has been watching the trend where more and more children under the age of 18 are forced to go into isolation here after contracting the virus. As of yesterday, 114 students are reportedly in isolation, and with the majority of under 18s and also no children under the age of 12 being vaccinated here, these age groups will become primary targets, and they really have become primary targets for the Delta variant. Dr. Cave says that's why the conversation about younger children getting the vaccine is buzzing in major countries.
Worldwide, this is a hot topic, especially in pediatrics. You know, in the history of vaccination, we've pushed it younger and younger. Our children begin their first immunizations at 2 months so they can be protected during the vulnerable period of childhood once we are sure that the vaccinations are safe. So yes, it is quite conceivable that eventually they will go to younger and younger ages. In the past 2 years, as we've learned about COVID and COVID vaccines, the most vulnerable people were offered first, the elderly with comorbidities. And then it became the adult population were offered it as well, down to 18. And biologically, 18 is an arbitrary cutoff. There's nothing physiologically special about 18. It just coincides with the legality. People have had experience across the world with trying to protect younger people, and to all intents and purposes, as approved by Australia, as about to be approved in the UK, as provisionally approved in the US.
We'll take a break here. We have some more COVID-19 updates coming your way. Barbados continues to register relatively high numbers of new cases of COVID-19. 64 people, 30 males and 34 females have been identified by the Best dos Santos Public Health Laboratory after the facility conducted 1,979 tests on Monday. The new cases consist of 13 individuals under the age of 18. The number of people in isolation now stands at 339. There have been 5,032 confirmed cases of COVID-19 recorded here in Barbados since the start of the pandemic in March last year, while 50 people have died from the virus. 94,391 people, or 34.8% of the population, have received second doses of a vaccine and are therefore fully vaccinated. Meanwhile, we are hearing of a proposal for a new COVID-19 testing strategy. The Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners is putting forward a model it believes will help to prevent some of the COVID-19 clusters that have been popping up and leading to a big jump in the number of cases, especially with the Delta variant in circulation. The President, Dr. Linda Williams, has been sharing the proposal with me here on the Morning Report.
You would hear people talking about clusters and so forth. But with Delta now being the, we presume the predominant strain is becoming the predominant strain, even if it isn't there as yet. We have to kind of prevent those clusters from starting. So you're not only just looking at finding where an outbreak has occurred, because you're always then running behind it. And it's moving very fast. It's moving 7, 8, 10 times faster than previous strains. Okay? It's moving very fast. It's passing between people very quickly. So the way out of that is to do as much community surveillance as possible. Surveillance basically You are looking for something in a community before it actually happens. So you may know, for example, that there are particular areas of Barbados that are hotspots. There may be areas which are densely populated. There may be areas which are, frequented by large numbers of people on a weekend, that kind of thing. And you know that within these hotspots, if a case or two cases of a highly transmissible variant away, that it will spread within those communities rather quickly. So rather than wait for it to spread and you turn up with a whole household sick, right? You go into those communities and you find those cases even before they occur. And that's what we want to see happening. We want to see that kind of surveillance going on.
Let's go over to Jamaica now, where the private sector vaccination drive is being hailed as a success so far, as that country tries to increase the vaccination rate there.
The private sector vaccination initiative seeks to assist the national vaccination drive to get as many Jamaicans as possible vaccinated against COVID-19.
And how we do that is we work through companies who would like to encourage and create increased access for their employees and their team members to get vaccinated. We're here today at Sagicor, in a Sagicor auditorium, to vaccinate the Sagicor team.
So we have 700 people registered already. We expect that we'll have even more. And we're going to be promoting this next week also. And on the 2nd of September, Thursday, we have a second day booked for the same auditorium here. And we expect to have many more than 700 by the time the 2 days are finished.
Today, the turnout has been really good. We've been really busy. Our target for today is 700, and we are quite close to the target, and people are still coming in. So definitely the turnout has been encouraging.
The movement partners with private sector companies to make accessing the vaccine easier for their employees. On Friday, both the Johnson & Johnson and the AstraZeneca jabs were being offered.
My company decided to have a blitz of their own, so this is the first day they're actually doing it. So I signed up as soon as they announced it because it was pretty hard to get the time to go to the other places and so forth.
Let's now go over to Pearson to hear what he has planned for you on the Wednesday edition of Morning Barbados as they start the month of September. Pearson?
Shane, thank you. Good morning, everyone. The team has put together a show today where we're asking the question, what is uterovaginal prolapse? Do you know? What are the risk factors, the symptoms, and the possible treatments? Our OBGYN will join us today to take a look at that. Been there, got out. What's that about? You'll find out when you join me here. And also, with just 31 days to go till the start of UNTAD 15, how are preparations ongoing for the village marketplace? Adisa Andele will join us to talk about that. He's the event and production coordinator. Just a little bit of what you can expect when you join us right here on Morning Barbados. It's back to you, Shane.
Thank you, Pearson. And after the break, you'll hear how the Ministry of Health will be actively dealing and addressing the spread of the Delta variant here in Barbados. A major effort is underway to deal with the challenges posed by the Delta variant. It involves the provision of over $47 million to the Ministry of Health. The Minister of Health and Wellness, Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostick, made the revelation during debate in the lower house yesterday. He says the funds are to address the strains and challenges brought on by the presence of the Delta variant of COVID-19. Among the plans is another vehicle to attempt to help in the country's COVID-19 response, along with additional human resources. While noting Barbados is not overwhelmed at this point, he warns the country can get there.
We are doing all of this because when we see what is happening in the international community in particular, and even within the CARICOM region, we know the impact of Delta and how devastating it can be. But we are very, very confident that our outcome does not have to be the same as others if we continue to do the right things. And we have some mitigating measures in place that will protect us and give us the ability to be able to deal and to manage what is ahead of us. And for example, we are probably one of the few, if not only country in the world, to do the contact tracing and the quarantining in hotels of primary contacts of positive cases. And we've been doing that consistently since February.
Minister Boswick says the country isn't taking any chances regarding the supply of oxygen, given what's playing out in other countries.
We've taken the decision to transform what is now secondary isolation to be more like primary isolation by now putting in oxygen into that building so that they will have their own oxygen. We're looking to put perhaps oxygen even in tertiary isolation at this point, and also a medical air and some of those things that are very, very necessary because we recognize what is happening globally and regionally with oxygen supply when you really need it. We also went as far as to purchase a couple oxygen plants.
In the U.S., more than 1 million customers remain without power in Louisiana after the passing of Hurricane Ida. According to power outage officials, and they're gathering data still from U.S. utility companies, thousands of people are still without drinking water as well.
Louisiana's governor called the destruction catastrophic. Several communities are underwater. 4 people are known to have died in the storm, including 2 in Mississippi when a highway collapsed. Flash flood warnings have been issued for Tennessee as Ida moves northeast. NBC's Jay Gray has more from New Orleans.
A real mess, no electricity, many no water. I want to give you an example of what this storm left behind, and you can see the devastation here. What was a building in the downtown area just left as a pile of rubble at this point. It looked more like a tornado than a hurricane, and that's how forceful these winds were, gusting over 100 miles an hour for a solid 4 or 5 hours here in the New Orleans metro area. There is devastation like this and even worse that stretches across all of southeast Louisiana right now. You've got 5,000 National Guard troops on the ground. You've got teams coming in from around the country, 30 states sending in help, and it's help they're desperately going to need at this point. This is a process that's going to take a lot of time. Getting back from this is going to be very difficult, and it starts with getting some more power here. The entire New Orleans metro area is without electricity right now, and it appears it will be that way for quite some time.
In sports, Barbados Royals lost their 3rd match of the Heroes CPL last night, going down to the Jamaica Talawas at Warners Park in St. Kitts. Batting first, the Royals made 151 for 8 off their 20 overs after being 34 for 4 at one stage. The recovery was thanks mainly to a 71-run 5th wicket partnership between Azam Khan, who top scored with 50, that included 5 fours and 3 sixes, and Glenn Phillips, who made 31. Miguel Pretorius took 4 for 45 for the Talawas, while Fidel Edwards had 2 for 32. Let's look at the highlights of the Royals' innings.
So these persons are more or less used as samples, if you could call a person that, what exists in Barbados in terms of its cultural life. There's something I wanted, which was nightlife, but COVID put a stop to that. But I will be showing some performances, compliments of the National Cultural Foundation from their recordings to capture the nightlife of Barbados. But that's one thing that I wanted to do. But there's no oistins, at night. Nightlife and activity and gathering is not allowed, right? So that's just one aspect that I would like. Also, we took a walk down on Brandon's Beach, so people would see overseas what beach life in Barbados is, right? And that's a very community beach. People go to certain beaches, they travel from far, but Brandon is, I would say, the community beach. People from the community they're lying there on Saturday evenings and Sunday evenings. So we try to capture that sort of beach life, walking along the beach at Brandon as well, just off the flour mill,
Adisa, you're no stranger to large-scale productions such as these, but this one is global. What does it mean to you to be a part of the team putting all of this together to represent Barbados? Yeah, well, first it is not only that it's going out internationally, but the production itself as a virtual conference and all the moving parts. This is probably one of the most challenging productions that I have done. And people say, man, you have done Pickle Crop, Soccer, all these things, right? Physically, and it's huge because the physical space and the amount of people. But to replicate that in the virtual space calls for more work, more detailed recordings. I have stretched Christopher Johnson and Richard Rollins and the whole staff to the max to get this thing materialized in a virtual space for the world to see. And that is huge, that is huge. And I think that as a small country, that the Prime Minister was able to get the UNCTAD 15 Barbados. For a small country, this is tremendous, right? It is going to tell the world that Barbados is 100 square miles, but look what they are capable of, look what they was able to produce, on just 166 square miles, right? But it shows that we have in Barbados the personnel with the skills and technical ability and the know-how to pull off an event of this type, right? Indeed. And I hope that more comes somewhere down the line. Something tells me more will come somewhere down the line.
Yes.
Should God spare life, you'll be there to be a part of it as well. And for all watching this morning, you can see it on untad15.bb or untad15.org. And we're just 31 days away, but it's going to be stunning and exciting as we showcase to the world the best of who we are. Barbados, of course, small but big in execution as well. And Adisa Andwele is the events and production manager, and so he's coordinating the village marketplace, which we will all celebrate when it all unfolds in 31 days. Adisa, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning to share with us the excitement as we lead up to this big conference coming up. But as we say goodbye as well, I want to extend our deepest condolences to you on the loss of your mother. We know that she meant a lot to you, and we pray that God comforts you at this time.
Yeah, thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome. Adisa Andwele, the events and productions manager with UNTAD 15. The village marketplace is on. It's going to reflect all of who we are. And because of who we are, we will continue to celebrate with them and watch it and be engaged with this global conference. Just 31 days away. We're going to take a break right here, and we're back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We have 12 minutes to go to the hour of 7 o'clock now. As I told you in our teaser in the morning report, been there, got out. What's that about? Well, we're joined this morning by co-directors of Been There, Got Out in Lisa Johnson and Chris Barry. Along with them is Robin Paris of the OSS project team. Good morning, each of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much for coming through. Been there, got out. I'll start right there. What's that about?
Well, what we do is we offer expert strategic guidance to people who are dealing with high conflict relationships, divorce, custody battles, and co-parenting issues, so they have the best chance at a good outcome in court and beyond, just in life after such a horrific experience.
And that's because we heard so many horrifying stories really of people who in separating, divorcing, in moving away, of how they manage that process. And so this opportunity provides them a chance to be able to look at themselves again from outside perhaps and see how they can manage and mitigate against any fallout, especially when children are involved. Am I right?
Yes, yeah, those are the most painful ones.
Almost everybody who we have as a client, it involves children. It's not, we don't have clients who are fighting over a $3 million estate or something like that. It's the children that are most important.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate. Well, Robin Paris is a co-coordinator of the Family Law Training Seminar of the OSS project team. Robin, give us from your perspective what you see when these situations occur.
Absolutely. So we set out with the intention with this seminar basically to bring our practicing attorneys in Barbados kind of up to speed as to what is going on internationally. Because in Barbados, we do actually have our laws amended to be able to facilitate some of the failings that are happening in the court system that people are experiencing, especially in the cases where relationships or the separation of relationships involve domestic violence. So we are seeing that there are a number of red flags, we'll call them, that are recognized internationally in terms of figuring out whether or not a divorce and separation is following a normal trajectory, or if indeed it is a high conflict one in which a perpetrator that was within the relationship that is now outside of the relationship is trying to continue to insert themselves into the victim's life as they go through the court system. And that's also helped by the court system. And therefore, that's why it's so important for us to address it at that level.
And sometimes we're not able to discern those red flags. So is the seminar also to assist us in being able to spot it when it happens?
Absolutely. So this seminar, we are now on Thursday, we will be doing our 10th installment. We have basically gradually built attorneys through the process, first by describing what gender-based violence is, the international best standards. We have also talked about our own laws here, not only from a legal standpoint, but from the intention of the information in the law and the prescriptions, why they are so relevant when you are dealing with a case with domestic violence. And then, naturally, it is evolving into what Chris and Lisa will be talking about tomorrow evening, which are these red flags that one can look out for. Because again, each case is very different, but high conflict personalities in the law system kind of follow a similar pattern. Mm-hmm. So hopefully allow attorneys the ability to easily see where they are dealing with something that is maybe not just a normal separation and divorce case.
So Lisa and Chris, been there, got out. Why have you started?
Well, of course, because we had our own difficulties getting out of our own long-term marriages, and each of us share children with our exes. And we spent years and made mistakes along the way, but we hoped to save other people time, energy, and especially money from everything we've learned these past.
In your case, seven years. Lisa's been in the legal system.
Yes, I'm still in the legal system. Yeah, so we want others to avoid that pain and expense as much as possible.
So what are we not spotting? What are people not who find themselves in situations similar to yours not quite getting right or not quite understanding?
Okay, well, there's so much, but one of the big issues is what we're going to talk about a lot tomorrow, which involves coercive control. And this is more, a lot of people think that abuse or domestic violence is mostly physical, and somehow it doesn't count if you're not being battered. But coercive control is more of this long patterns of psychological abuse that usually at least 51% of victims don't understand that they're actually experiencing, because it's so insidious that it's happened over time. And this can involve like just long-term patterns, like I said, of threats and humiliation and intimidation, which isolate a victim, regulate their everyday behavior, and deprive them of independence. And the thing is, when this happens over time, it's not just another person doing it to someone, but we as victims internalize it and do it to ourselves. And we're always like, we know we're dealing with someone who's very unpredictable, so we'll start shifting our own behavior. A lot of times it's referred to walking on just to survive and protect ourselves, and especially to protect our children.
And over time, it actually changes the chemistry in your brain, which is shown in like studies for people in cults and things like that, where you just get completely unable to even recognize what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Let's look at the father, Chris. Sorry, go ahead, Lisa, you were saying?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Chris was saying too, it's like the chemistry of your brain actually changes with this type of psychological abuse, and it's like being brainwashed as if you're in a cult, because you've internalized all these ever-changing rules and you adopt your behavior in order to survive a relationship. And children are the victims of this as well, and so I said before, it's like walking on eggshells.
One of the things you noted was that common misconception is that having both parents in a child's life is best, when safety of the child should be priority. And obviously the father is central to all of that. So Chris, talk to us a little bit about what we're hoping from that statement alone to be able to unearth so that people begin to heal.
Well, that's a whole topic on its own. My big thing is, in my divorce and separation, is I'm a father of two boys now who are 17 and 14. And it's the biggest, most important thing in my life. And I felt all through that, my divorce took 3 years. And throughout that process, my big fear was that that role is gonna be diminished, and it's gonna be, I'm just gonna see them once in a while. It worked out okay. I have about 50% custody approximately. And my role with my sons is protected. But from a male standpoint, there are a lot of biases in the court system, and they go both ways, right? It tends to courts globally, not just in the US, but elsewhere, tend to be patriarchal. So in some cases, a man has an advantage. But in other cases, like where somebody like me, it probably doesn't show on camera, but I'm 6'3", I weigh 230 pounds. I play college football here in the US. I'm a big guy. Mm-hmm. And my ex-wife is only 5'4", and she presents very she's the big doe eyes, and she looks very innocent. But yet in our situation, she was the abusive one. Well, I can't walk into court and say something like that. It just, so like I said, the biases do go both ways.
And so, Robin, the court system, the legal system in itself, what can the legal system do to assist those kinds of stories?
I think the legal system is where we begin. There were a lot of people who asked why we weren't starting with police and why we weren't or going straight to the judges. But, as we talked about the last time we were with you, the lawyer is usually the first place that a victim will reach out for help. And so we're trying this kind of approach where we're arming our attorneys with the most up-to-date knowledge and with the case law to back it up, and then hoping that by going into the system and going through the system, that hopefully some of those best practices and some of that new information will organically make its way through the system. But in addition to that, it is also so very important for us to provide support to our victims and survivors. And again, that's why we are trying to arm lawyers with the ability not only to be better advocates for their clients, but also to work with a more holistic approach and to involve more experts when they are going through the court system, whether it be a psychologist, a psychiatrist, an advocate, any sort of advisor, depending on the situation that is within the case. So we really are finding that our lawyers, while they did know the information, they maybe didn't understand the reasoning behind it, or maybe they didn't understand why a victim acts the way that they do. So all of this knowledge is just going to better help attorneys to not only do their job and to prove their case, but also in helping their clients to heal and move on from the abuse. Because as we know, one of the hardest times for a victim is when they leave the relationship, because at the end of the day, abuse is about control. So when the control is starting to wane and once that cord has been cut, that is usually when most of the damage occurs.
Boy. So it's called the contentious divorce or separation. Violence lives here. That's the question. And so Been There, Got Out is hosting this tomorrow. So tell us a little bit about how people can be a part of it.
So right now, our primary focus was to offer this information to attorneys, but organically, we also had a number of law students who signed up. And again, that's incredible for us as well, because again, the knowledge is coming straight into the new attorneys and those who will be called to the bar. But we also have a number of concerned citizens who have reached out to us and joined individual sessions where they wanted to just get a little bit more knowledge. So I think that, through the information and through not only giving it to the attorneys, but the organic way in which that information is spread to their colleagues, to their friends, we are really, hoping that we're punching above our belt here and making a big impact.
That's our hope as well. So BeenThereGotOut.com, BeenThereGotOut.com is where you can go to learn more, to hear more, to experience more, and perhaps share your story as well with Lisa and Chris. And certainly we hope that the attorneys turn out in good number to this seminar tomorrow to learn more about how we can really help with those contentious separations and divorces. And let's get out safely so the children are the beneficiaries as well. Thank you so very much, folks, for joining us this morning. Robin Paris, co-coordinator of Family Law Training Seminar of the OSS project team. Lisa Johnson and Chris Barry, who are co-directors of Been There, Got Out, BeenThereGotOut.com. Check it out today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Morning Barbados will continue right after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
All right, time for us to take a look at the news now once again. Here is Shane Seeley.
Thank you, Pearson. The Barbados Secondary Teachers Union is this morning joining national calls for children ages 12 to be 18 to be vaccinated against COVID-19. President Marianne Redmond is convinced it's the only way to create a safe, face-to-face learning environment in our local schools. At present, 114 students are in isolation after testing positive for COVID-19, and Ms. Redmond says the evidence is there and clear to show the Delta variant is a greater threat to children than other strains of the virus.
This sends a serious message to our small, densely populated society that we have to take all of the steps necessary, all of the steps that we know can work to protect this population. If children are vaccinated, it means that the layers of protection within the school environment would be more effective, and everyone using the school plant would then be protected, better protected against the virus. That way, we can attempt to resume a more normal approach to education, which is our face-to-face type of instruction.
The BSDU president also reveals that the uptake of the COVID-19 vaccines among teachers has been good so far. But she warns that if vaccine levels don't improve soon, she doesn't see a return of face-to-face classes in the near future.
Because if you do your research and you look globally at the trends, really and truthfully, you would see that the best way to protect our youth right now is to vaccinate them. In terms of a low uptake of vaccinations and how it would affect the STU and its members as teaching professionals, we would really hope that that low uptake is turned around, so to speak, and that persons would be convinced that this is the way to go. It is the only way or the most effective way to provide a safe teaching, learning environment to which our students can return.
Now, while the conversation about vaccinating children under the age of 12 for COVID-19 is a controversial one, a leading pediatrician believes it's a conversation that needs to happen urgently here in Barbados in light of the surge of COVID-19 cases in all segments of the population. The Director of Medical Services at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Dr. Clyde Cave, has been watching the trend where more and more children under the age of 18 are forced to go into isolation after contracting the virus. Dr. Cave says that's why the conversation about younger children getting vaccinated is buzzing in major countries.
This is a hot topic, especially in pediatrics. You know, in the history of vaccination, we've pushed it younger and younger. Our children begin their first immunizations at 2 months so they can be protected during the vulnerable period of childhood once we are sure that the vaccinations are safe. So yes, it is quite conceivable that eventually they will go to younger and younger ages. In the past 2 years, as we've learned about COVID and COVID vaccines, the most vulnerable people were offered first, the elderly with comorbidities. And then it became the adult population were offered it as well, down to 18. And biologically, 18 is an arbitrary cutoff. There's nothing physiologically special about 18. It just coincides with the legality. People have had experience across the world with trying to protect younger people, and to all intents and purposes, as approved by Australia, as about to be approved in the UK, as provisionally approved in the US.
Barbados continues to have relatively high numbers of new positive cases of COVID-19. 64 people, 30 males and 34 females have been identified by the Best dos Santos Public Health Lab after the facility conducted 1,979 tests on Monday. The new cases consist of 13 children under the age of 18. The number of people in isolation now stands at 339. There have been 5,032 confirmed cases of COVID-19 since the pandemic started in March last year, while 50 people have died from from the virus. And finally, we are hearing a proposal for a new COVID-19 testing strategy. BAMP, the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners, is putting forward the model it believes will help to prevent some of these COVID clusters that have been leading to a big jump in the numbers here, especially with the Delta variant in circulation. Here's what Dr. Linda Williams, the president, had to say.
You would hear people talking about clusters and so forth. But with Delta now being the, we presume the predominant strain is becoming the predominant strain, even if it isn't there as yet. We have to kind of prevent those clusters from starting. So you're not only just looking at finding where an outbreak has occurred, because you're always then running behind it. And it's moving very fast. It's moving 7, 8, 10 times faster than previous strains. Okay? It's moving very fast. It's passing between people very quickly. So the way out of that is to do as much community surveillance as possible. Surveillance, basically, you are looking for something in a community before it actually happens. So you may know, for example, that there are particular areas of Barbados that are hotspots. There may be areas which are densely populated. There may be areas which are, frequented by large numbers of people on a weekend, that kind of thing. And you know that within these hotspots, if a case or 2 cases of a highly transmissible variant gets away, that it will spread within those communities rather quickly. So rather than wait for it to spread and you turn up with a whole household sick, right? You go into those communities and you find those cases even before they occur. And that's what we want to see happening. We want to see that kind of surveillance going on.
And that's our 7 a.m. headline news. I'm Shane Seeley. Back to you, Pearson.
Shane, thanks. A break and then the Crumbs question of the day.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning to you.
11.5 minutes after 7 o'clock. Time for you to call me now on 228-5562 or 228-5563 because it's time for today's Crumbs question of the day. It's going to be a very simple question, so you can get on the phone now, 228-5562 or 228-5563 because here comes today's Crumbs question of the day. Here we go. You know this. I am a rolled sponge cake. I have different names. Can be filled with jam or whipped cream. What am I called at Crumbs Bakery? I am a rolled sponge cake. I have different names. Can be filled with jam or whipped cream. What am I called at Crumbs Bakery? 228-5562 or 228-5563. It is so simple. I know you're going to call right now and get it right. 228-5562 or 63. I am a rolled sponge cake. I have different names. Can be filled with jam or whipped cream. What am I called at Crumbs Bakery? Good morning to you. Hello.
Pleasant morning to you, Pearson.
Thank you. What parish are you watching from?
St. Michael.
All right. What's your answer?
What is a Swiss roll?
Oh, you're doing Jeopardy. You know, you give an answer, you ask a
You're
question.
so
What's your answer?
Swiss roll.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So right indeed. Thank you so much. You stay right there on the phone. We'll take some more information. And she's a winner today. She correctly identified the answer to today's Crumbs question of the day as a Swiss roll. That's what it is. Of course, you can get your Swiss rolls affordably from Crumbs Bakery, and there is a Crumbs Bakery very near you, with a new one soon to come at 6 Road St. Philip. We're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we meet a Bajan afar.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
It's 15.5 minutes after the hour of 7 o'clock here on Morning Barbados, and as always, we love to connect with the Bajans somewhere in the world to learn their story and perhaps inspire anyone else to travel out into the big, vast world to discover and conquer that space as well. And so we're very excited this morning to meet this one who is considered to be a world traveler, an actress, a philanthropist who has conquered the 7 continents and who is continuing to do all sorts of great things. There she is on your screen. That's Sun Queen. Good morning to you, Miss Sun Queen.
Good morning, Barbados.
And good morning to you as well. Where in the world art thou?
I am actually home right now.
Oh, really? You're on my 166 square miles?
I am in the 246.
All right, fair enough. But you're on the 246 from the UK.
Yes, I actually live in London, but I've been here on this side of the Atlantic since Corona has happened, and I'm so grateful to be home within this time.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. Explain for me life in the UK as you know it.
Well, I've lived there since 2009, and I have to be honest with you, since being there in 2009, I haven't spent much time in the UK. I've been traveling around and finishing up my continents and seeing what's out there. But life in London is quite enjoyable. It's a different pace to New York City, where I grew up. Very different pace to Barbados as well. And, just overall, it's a metropolitan of all these people doing all these amazing things. And it's just lovely to live there and to experience so many cultures, being that London is a European hub.
So it must be interesting being back on an island like this at a totally different pace. How are you coping?
Yeah. You know, I think it's exactly what I needed. Sometimes you don't get what you want, but you get what you need. And I needed to be home within this time. The pace is just right.
The pace is just right.
The pace.
I love the fact that you've conquered the 7 continents thus far, with Antarctica being the last that you visited. Why did you think it necessary to do that kind of extensive travel?
Well, Pearson, it was a very personal journey for me. I've always wanted to travel since my CBC and US Airways days. I've always wanted to see the world, and I got the opportunity to do so. It was a blessing and a curse. I was unwell for a while, and I had to stop acting, and I thought to myself, wow, I feel so lost, like just being here alone, doing nothing, trying to heal. And so traveling was part of a big part of my healing process. Yeah, both mentally, physically, and even emotionally.
Yes.
You know, it was a big part of my healing process. And having that time to myself to be able to do something I love, to feed my soul, you know, it really helped with the comeback.
Yes, I can well imagine. I can well imagine, because, you know, for a lot of us, myself included, with this pandemic, your ability to move is truncated somewhat, and, you know, the thirst to just try and experience a different culture, different space, and to build one's self back up is so limiting right now. So I get you. But this theatre bug of yours, because you're also an actress, tell us a little bit about this passion for acting and theatre.
Oh, wow. I think it started at Alexandra. Big up to all my AX classes out there. Past, present, future. 11 classes just last month, the month before.
Yes.
It started at Alexandra. I was in the drama club there. And then it kind of just built throughout the time. It was always underlying. And I don't know if I knew that it was a passion back then, but definitely with the way that my life has worked out, I have always come back to set and stage. And so passions never die.
Wow.
And so I find myself re-entering the acting arena with some directing under my belt. The exams for directing at London Film Academy, and even screenwriting is in the future.
Yes. I like the statement you made, passions never die. And one of our segments we have coming up later on, we're talking about those 12 steps towards a strong finish. One of which we've already experienced was that, you know, one needs to have the passion and the drive to succeed to the very end. And here it is, you're echoing what we've been studying over the past few weeks. And part of that passion has led you now to be a philanthropist as well. Let's talk about that work.
Yes. So within that time that I took off from set and stage, from acting, I also started a charity house, a fundraising trifecta called Point of Awakening. There are 3 different incentives, or initiatives rather, under the Point of Awakening house. And that is POW in the Pink, which raises funds for the Macmillan Center at UCLH. And they're doing amazing work taking care of people after their diagnosis of cancer and their treatment. Also, there's POW Syndicats, hoping to bring more light to the interconnectedness of us all. Raising money for tigers might not seem like I'm helping humans, but we are all part of this beautiful ecosystem. And when one part fails, you know what they say, you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Yes.
And the third one, last but not least, is the new initiative, POW JIA. That's Point of Awakening jumps into action, raising money for children living with juvenile idiopathic arthritis, which is something that affected me when I was in school.
So you're using your own personal experience to be able to lend to the benefit of others as well. Your name, Sun Queen, I want to come back to that for just a moment, if you don't mind. Why is it that you radiate? What is it that you're radiating, you think?
Well, Sun is my actual given name. Thank you, Queen Mother. It is my Christian name. I got it at QEH. And Samika is actually my full name. But over the years, people have started calling me Sun. My family calls me more so Mika. And Queen is, if I could say this, my Black Rock name. So the kids in Black Rock started to call me Queen. And then their parents started, and then everyone else started. And so I thought, you know, I want to use my two given names. They come from very different places, but they do represent who I am and what I try to do, to shine my light as bright as possible and be a beacon for everyone else out there to see. So Sun Queen fits me just fine. I'm pulling a Nicolas Cage piercing.
That is so beautiful. So there you are. You want to be the beacon, having yourself gone to the school known as a beacon as well, Alexandra per Adua ad Astra. It's so ironic how... There you go. How ironic how all of this comes together indeed. What do you think you know better about yourself from all of your travels?
I definitely learned to trust in myself more, to hear my gut clearer. You know, when you're out there and you're alone in the quote unquote elements, there's no one to hold your hand. There's no one to say turn left or right. There's no one to guide you. You are basically throwing yourself out there to the universe and say, do what you will. And I've been very, very lucky to have that opportunity, especially coming from the back end of not being well, to have that opportunity to hear and trust my gut again.
Wow, that's powerful, powerful, powerful indeed. Sun Queen, time is up against us right now, but again, it's been our immense pleasure connecting with you, and we want to encourage you to continue in your ways that you do, be the very best that you are as an actress, a philanthropist, a world traveler, through your points of awakening. And for anyone watching today who wants to engage with your points of awakening, how can they do so?
Most definitely. I am on Just Giving, www.justgiving.com/point-of-awakening. You can also find How in the pink, How Thundercats, and How J as in Juliet, I as in Igloo, A as in Alpha. If you go on Just Giving and just type it in, and there we are. And you can read the stories. Thank you so much in advance, my Queen's Queens.
I love it. Thank you so much as well for joining us on Morning Barbados. Great connecting with you. Thank you.
Namaste.
To you as well. Morning Barbados does continue right after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
27.5 minutes after 7 o'clock now, as we turn our attention to Doc Talk. And joining us this morning is Dr. John Barker, who is our obstetrician, gynecologist. This morning we want to look at uterovaginal prolapse. Good morning to you, doctor.
Hi, good morning, Pearson.
Good to see you
Thanks for
again.
having me.
What is uterovaginal prolapse and how common is it?
Right. Surprisingly enough, uterovaginal prolapse affects more than half of women over the age of 50, and about 10 to 20% of them are symptomatic. Now, these figures are the same internationally, and they're more common in Caucasian or Hispanic ladies. But essentially, uterovaginal prolapse is a condition where you can get the uterus coming down from its normal anatomical position. You can also get the bladder coming down as well, or the rectum coming down as well. And these are all seen via the vagina.
And would this happen because of childbearing?
Yes, the pelvic organs are held up by the pelvic floor. So usually if you're pregnant or you had childbirth, the muscles are not as strong as they would normally be. In addition to this, any condition like heavy lifting constantly or coughing or obesity can increase your chances of getting a prolapse as well.
So how does a woman know she's had a prolapse?
Right, as I said, 10 to 20% would become symptomatic. And if they are symptomatic, the most common presentation is they will complain of a lump or a heaviness down below. Usually they might have issues passing water. So it's very important to ask them if they have any like urgency or frequency. Sometimes they can have urgent incontinence as well. Sometimes they can have stress incontinence as well, whereby when you cough or sneeze, you would wet yourself. More severe forms can involve your rectum, whereby you actually have to digitally put your finger inside to have a bowel motion.
My goodness. It's just to hear this, to hear you say that alone makes me shudder somewhat. And therefore, when these things occur, there is treatment for it. Should a woman be concerned, though, when she experiences this, or is this, as you said, there are 20 or so percent of people who do, and how concerned should she really be when she experiences this?
Right. So if a lady complains of heaviness and stuff, I would advise them to see either the GP or the gynecologist. If it's a mild prolapse, Kegel exercises like pelvic floor exercises, they can offer significant improvement, especially if there's some like stress incontinence as well. If, however, the prolapse is a bit what we would call moderate to severe, then one of the conservative options that we can do is putting in a pessary, which can either be a ring pessary or a shelf. Sometimes they can be acceptable to a percentage of women. However, surgery is one of the other options, and this involves either replacing the bladder prolapse, which is called the cystocele, and this is an anterior repair. The back passage is what we call a posterior repair for the rectocele, which is the prolapse. If the womb itself is coming down, there are one or two modalities, depending on the age of the patient, because most of the time this happens in postmenopausal ladies. So sometimes we can offer them a vaginal hysterectomy and what we call a sacrospinous fixation, whereby we anchor the top of the vaginal wall to a ligament inside the actual pelvis itself. So those are the three main operations that you would offer. However, if the patient is younger, sometimes we can offer them sacrocolpoplexy, which is essentially hitching the uterus to the actual to some ligaments in the pelvis itself.
Are all women predisposed to prolapse?
It's more common in Hispanic or Caucasian females. Black people, in terms of Afro-Caribbean, it is seen in this specific race, but not as frequently as in Hispanics or the Caucasians.
Normally, as you said, into with menopausal women, but there are some cases where you do meet some younger women who find themselves with a prolapse as well. When that happens, what is their prognosis for childbirth thereafter?
Well, they have the same incidents of getting pregnant and stuff. The only issue would be is in relation to conservatively managing them. So in terms of pelvic floor physiotherapy, you send them to the physiotherapist. And the reason for this is that if you offer them any treatment or surgical treatment for that matter, if they get pregnant again, then you would basically destroy the work of the surgery that you did. So you would offer them conservative means first until they have completed childbirth.
My goodness. I get the process of examination, because it's a prolapse, you said, is a dropping of the uterus, and you can actually see or feel. And to the naked eye, would the woman be able to see? I know she could feel, but can she see it as it's happening?
It all depends on how far down the actual prolapse is. So for argument's sake, if you have the uterus prolapsing through, sometimes you can see the cervix actually coming out. But that is called a procedentia, and that is in extreme circumstances. If the bladder rectum is actually prolapsing, in extreme circumstances, you can see either the top part of the vagina coming down or the back part.
That has to be so frightening, I could well imagine. I would be, if it were me, I'd be afraid if I had that experience. Because it seems from the description to be a little bit abnormal. And, you know, you run to the doctor. Is that what you would say to any woman who has experienced it? Can she just delay treatment of it? And if she delays treatment, what are the dangers in delaying?
Right. Anything which a woman finds abnormal, I would advise her to go and get checked up. The actual prolapse itself is no threat to life, but it is a very uncomfortable, can be a very uncomfortable situation, and sometimes it can lead to psychological issues as well, because some people may think that it's something wrong with them or something that they have done. But you have to tell them, well, it's no threat to life, one, and two, half of women over 50 will present some degree of prolapse and 20% will be symptomatic. It's just that, unfortunately, patient that presents to you is symptomatic, so you have to deal with the process that they have.
With the surgical treatments that you've been talking about, success rates, let's hear a little bit about that. Would she be able to come in, have the treatment, and then move on to carry on a regular, happy living life?
Yes, the majority of surgical treatments are effective. Sometimes, though, you have to tell them that there is a chance that it could recur, but that's very small, less than 5 to 8%.
So it's very small that it could recur, and if it should recur, then you repeat the surgical procedure, or is there danger in that?
Yes, but in terms of doing repeat procedures, you don't really see much people coming back for repeat repair of the anterior repair or the cystocele, or the rectocele, sorry.
So then what do you do if you don't come back?
No, in terms of the success rate is pretty good. You don't see them.
Because if it recur, I'm coming back, you know, and so that's important. But management of it, is there a lot of pain, you know, and if so, how does one manage the discomfort or the pain following the surgical treatment?
Right. Vaginal surgery is one recovers very quickly from vaginal surgery because there's a good blood supply, etc., and there's a decreased risk of infection. So once you get the surgery, you would usually recover within 2 weeks. You should be fine, 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes you can get an infection, or sometimes you can get what we call granulation tissue, whereby you get new growth. When you get a cut and it starts to heal, it's a bit vascular. So we just cauterize that, but you can get like bleeding or infection afterwards. But this would increase your recovery period. But usually by 2-3 weeks after vaginal surgery, you more or less are.
But in those 2-3 weeks, you're advised to bed rest, don't lift heavy things, those kinds of things. Is that what's recommended?
Well, you don't lift anything heavy because essentially the prolapse is like a hernia. So you don't lift anything heavy. In terms of bed rest, yes, but you take things easy. You don't try to do stuff that you were doing prior to the surgery. So that's in the process in itself. But recovery is pretty quick.
Well, that's, I'm sure, for a lot of women, some salve this morning at least, that there is a solution to all of this. And though you may present within that 20% who are symptomatic, or gynecologists or obstetricians will be able to assist you through that process as well. That's great to hear. Dr. John Barker, as usual, thank you. For those of you who are having that uterovaginal prolapse, contact him. You laugh. Thanks a lot, my friend. Thank you so much. Of course, but I can see you again sometime soon.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You do too. Thank you. Dr. John Barker, obstetrician gynecologist, right here on Morning Barbados. We're going to take a break here. And when we come back, get your books ready. We are going to be delving into this, the 12 keys to a strong finish, and turn to key number 10. Coming right back after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning to you.
So there are 20 minutes to go to the hour of 8 o'clock, and we have some time now, folks. Get your book ready, 12 Keys to a Strong Finish by Bishop Marlon Husbands. Your life lessons for facing your everyday challenges. That's what we're about to start now. And we're down to chapter number 10, key number 10. Marlon, good morning to you.
Good morning, Pearson. Good morning, Barbados. You know, I'm always ready for you guys.
We know that indeed. But you know what I realized this morning, not realized this morning alone, but just reinforced this morning, because in one of our guests, Sun Queen, she was talking about her passion to make a difference. And that's one of the chapters that is in this book. But in acknowledging that, one has to acknowledge as well that in every one of these keys, we have at some point experienced these kinds of challenges, and so we've been reaching into the book. We could find solutions to our strong finish as well. And I think this book is so timely and so real to helping people navigate through life to that strong finish. I want to thank you for the experience indeed.
You're most welcome. I am going through this systematically each week has even added to who I am and the experience that was shared in the contents of the pages. And so I want to say thanks to you and Broadcasting Corporation Barbados for persisting and making sure that people are exposed to stuff, especially in this time, Pearson, as you have mentioned. People need affirmative, positive stuff coming into them on a daily basis, because the bad news is so much that we need to have something available to feed on as a diet.
Indeed.
And you know, guys, at this time, to have 12 keys available for people who are in need, people who need a jump start to their faith, to their confidence, to manage what is happening in our nation and the global platform. So I am so happy to have been a conduit which God can be glorified through.
And that's what we're going to be talking about today as well. The glory is God's to have. But before we get to that, I want to go with you as well, because you went into exactly what I wanted to talk about. Because when we look at Nehemiah's experience and how what the gates would have meant to his experience as well. And here we are as a people and as a nation, and we're bombarded by pandemic, by climate change, a whole host of things that are ripping down our gates, that space that we keep very sacred. And so we are called upon now to be as strong as possible and to learn from Nehemiah's experience as well. For me then too, this book is also very, very timely.
Correct. And it cannot be spoken enough how much positive information is a requirement, because positive information gives positive vibes. Positive vibes create confidence to face whatever challenge you have. And a vibe, we use the word loosely, but a vibe is a very integral part of our soulish existence and the way we advance through adversity. And I tell you, it's going to get, and I'm not a prophet of doom, but it generally gets a little worse before it gets better. And I would want to think that even though it looks a bit worse, we are in a better place.
I could agree with you entirely. So, down to key number, Lord forgive me for distracting myself. I can't believe you're coming so quickly to the end. This has been such a great journey with you, for real. So we're at key number 10. The glory is God's to have. Tell me why this key and liken it to Nehemiah's experience for us.
Excellent question. And the place I would want to begin is, glory or praise of someone, Pearson, activates their sense of willing capability. And I want you to travel with me through this. Activating a sense of willing capability. Now, we know how capable God is. So imagine we want God to come to our rescue, to flag our challenges and so on, and put them on his front burner. What other way in which to get God's attention than to give him glory? Just think of ourselves. When someone praises us, it adds to the fervor and the passion that we have to embrace them. And in this context, God is not only embracing, but he'll come to the rescue. So I'm saying that to praise and glorify God activates his sense of willing capability, because God is certainly capable, but it isn't every circumstance in which he is willing, because sometimes there are things in our lives that preempt God coming through for us. And so it opens up, saying, thank you, Jesus, the glory is yours, it is not mine. It releases God to come in on our business.
That is such a powerful statement, for real. And when you look at it and we apply it to our everyday experience, when someone praises you, when someone gives you affirmation, you feel empowered to do more, to give more, to be, and so to liken it to God, it's the same thing. It's so powerful. I'm telling you, you got me stuttering, for real. You said here in the book, the devil used a strategy of accusation to derail Nehemiah, and you can be certain that he will do the same to try to derail you. Nehemiah was not fazed by Sanballat's accusations because he knew that his intentions were keenly focused on God's glory and not his own. And so for a lot of us, that in itself too is one of the things that we need to be mindful of, that we are going to be approached by many people from many stimuli from many sources. But if we focus on God's glory, because it's not about us, it's about God's glory, that we'll succeed.
Yes, and one of the things we need to recognize is that ascribing glory to God divests us of the pride. It divests us of the pride.
Yes.
That it was us that overcame the challenge or made the accomplishment. And so when I say thank you, Lord, for doing this for me, thank you, Lord, for coming in this circumstance, I am divesting myself of the possibility or temptation of pride to think that it was me and my own resources and my capabilities. I am giving the glory to God. And I tell you, when my son says something positive about me, I'm excited. When my wife says something good about me, I'm excited. I am invigorated to go the extra mile. So just just cascade that now onto God. And we say, Lord, we thank you. You have been so good to us. You are such an excellent Father. And you go down the line with God, because God is an emotional God too. God can be grieved. He can be insulted. Equally, he can be enthusiastic about praises that are coming to him from the only part of his creation that has the voluntary power to say thank you, Lord.
So true, you know, so very true. But he's not to be trifled with. You're quite right. Because oftentimes we fool ourselves into thinking that we're giving God the glory, but we're doing it for the selfish reason. And so we need to be very, very careful of that as well. He's not to be trifled with.
Not to be trifled with. And my mind goes back to Paul and Silas in prison. They were in prison. They were incarcerated. But in the midst of their prison, and there's a word that's going to somebody this morning, in the midst of their prison, they started to praise and glorify God. They did not look at their deficits. They looked at their deposits. They were depositing into the emotions of God to activate something on their behalf based on the challenge. And the Bible says at midnight, Paul and Silas sang praises unto God. And those praises, I would like to be a fly on the wall. Paul and Silas would say, thank you, Lord. You are good. I know, listen, it doesn't matter what happens to me. I will forever praise you. The breath that I breathe is yours. The thought patterns that I have, you have created that capability. And I thank you. It doesn't matter where I am, where I found myself. I thank you. And God appeared. Listen, he released an angel. The Bible said an angel came and unlocked the prison bars, which means that the angel, each of us have angels assigned to us, person, and we must recognize that.
Indeed. One of the parts of the book you say here is as well, ways to give God the glory. And a lot of people are saying this morning, I hear you, Pastor, I get it right. I want to do what you're asking me to do, but how do I do it? So you've taken some time to look at that as well. So break that down for us, ways to give God the glory.
Well, there's so many things in which we can do to give God glory, but somehow I wanted to trap them in two aspects. One, the aspects of God's worth, who he is, and we are not only talking about God being the creator of the universe, but God being the salvation of our souls. He is the one who creates us. He is the one who transitions us from one place to another once we voluntarily give ourselves to him. And so the power, the worth that is given, is very significant. So we have to highlight and raise God's worth. And I said here, a thing's value is not determined by the things around it, but by the very essence of the thing. And so I am not only to praise God because of what he is going to do for me, but I'm to praise God because of who he is. And David highlights that throughout the psalm. So God's worth is of highest significance.
It is so true. Like into some worldly experiences now. You walk into a room, you see a vase, everything looks disheveled, it's in a storeroom. But there's this thing about the vase that you see, and in spite of all the dirt and dust around it, it stands out because of what you recognize to be its value. And that's what God represents for a lot of us in our mess, in our chaos around us as well. There's a man at the center of it all, it's God. And so we must be able to recognize his worth to bring value to our own experience as well as we give him the glory. And when we begin to give him the glory, then we see it being manifest in every single thing we do with the others around us as well. And that's why it's so important to know one's worth and to know God's worth as well. And in knowing God's worth, then we understand better how to give him the glory. Because he's not just some little thing that's on the wayside. He is who he is.
Yeah. And when you recognize God's worth, you do not run the risk of serving him because of what he can do.
Exactly.
But because of who he is. Because what he can do for us in the earth is going to come to an end. But who he is will forever exist.
You talk about
the second point is...
Go ahead. Before you get to the second, because you also talk about the five senses, you know, the sense of smell, touch, feel, hearing, and speech, and so forth. And how through those as well, by those, we can demonstrate our praise and glory to him too.
Correct. Because when I look at things, we must be careful what our eyes gaze on and what they communicate to the heart. We must be careful of what we touch and make sure that whatever we touch, it brings glory to God. We must be careful of the things we listen to. And that's why people think that some things are just innocent, but there are things we listen to that creates emotions, that creates thought patterns. And so those things feed into the heart. And the heart is the place that makes the decisions, is the place of decision making. So my eye gate, ear gate, touch gate, taste gate, smell, all of those things impression who I am and the product that comes out. You know, Jesus said it isn't what goes into a man that defiles him, but is what comes out. But what comes out must first be a part of who the man is.
Yes.
And so our senses are creators of that. So the point I'm making here is that because God has given us these senses, he gave us these senses to accelerate who he is and the credibility that he carries in our lives and the world.
And to recognize his worth and his value. And then you go on to merit. I know you wanted to get to that as well. Let's talk about that.
Yes, because merit now has to, merit creates measurables. You know, worth, you cannot find a measurable in worth, but you can find a measurable in merit.
Yes.
Because I remember when I was a boy at school, and that was such a long time ago, so probably longer than you are old. When I was a boy at school, I loved I loved art. I to this day I like art. I pride myself as an artist, and there are different layers of artists.
Yes.
But I was able to the teacher at the time recognized my ability and entered a piece that I would have done into NIFCA, and I received an award for it, and it was an award, and it was by merit, and so it was a kind of a distinctive award. And what I'm saying is that merits are measurables. So now, after recognizing and identifying who God is and so on, we can now turn to what he has done. So we look at history to measure what he has done. But we'll also look at the present to see what he is capable of doing on our behalf based on history, and then what he can do for us in the future. So it doesn't matter what we are confronted with now, there's a measurable. It doesn't matter what we'll be confronted with in the future, there are measurables. And God is the one who is able to take care of that for us. So we need not fear.
You know, you say here too, Nehemiah knew that God was extremely good to him by means of seeing the building process through to completion, protecting him from harm and danger, blessing what his hands touched, and prospering his way. God will prosper our way. And in it all, God staved off the enemy, gave Nehemiah's favor with the king, the people, the priests, and provided financial and the human resources. And that's what it's all about. When we understand who God is and what God can do, we can measure through his how we are meriting from his goodness to us as we go. But you also go on to say, outside of worth and merit, God has made all things for his own glory, and man is no exception. All of this links to all that we've been talking about all the while. God created us to give him the glory, to give him the praise, and naturally he requires us to do so.
Wow. And I just have to look at how we are, not only how we are constructed, but the things we do on the physical. People put on chains, they put on rings, they put on earrings, they put on all kind of things. Why? As accessories. As accessories to what? As accessories to making them look better.
Yes, yes, yes.
So the five senses that we spoke about in the element of worth are the accessories that God has given us to make him look better. How best to glorify God except by our mouths? How best to glorify God except by what we carry on? So there are different accessories that come along with glorifying God. And everything God has done, he has done, and he is not a selfish God, but he has done for himself and for his own glory. Now we are the ones who benefit from the offspring of God being happy with us.
Indeed. Listen, Mornin boy, we are the time. I've given you a real time today at key number 10, because all of this is so important. So folks, and though we're coming almost to the end of a journey, the journey can begin with you even today. Call for your book. Call to get your copy on 232-3961. 232-3961 and get your copy of this book, 12 Keys to a Strong Finish, and experience all that we've been talking about today, and you will see the experience in your life as well. 232-3961 or 431-0016. Bishop Marlon, thank you again. God's Spirit Life till next week, Wednesday. We're down to key 11.
Man, I tell you, and listen, fight for what you believe. And
Yes.
I tell you,
Yes.
I wouldn't want anybody to miss this one. This one is going to be a wrong boat. We're going to be having fight
look at
for
it.
what you believe. Fight for what you believe.
Got you, my brother.
Pearson.
Thank you.
God
Catch you
bless
next week, God's Spirit Live. We're going to take a break here, and then we'll wrap it up after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Thanks, everybody, for spending the time with us. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. For the crew, to all of you, good morning. Catch you tomorrow.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning.